Why don't you tell us what is MaidThis franchise and how you got
Sure.
started?
Yeah. So MaidThis is the first and only vacation rental cleaning franchise in the US. We actually do both residential and vacation rental cleanings. But what's kind of unique about it compared to regular residential cleaning companies, it's fully remote. So the franchise owners, they don't have to have an office, they don't have to have vehicles, overhead equipment, none of that. It's very lean. And it's a fully remote franchise model using AI, automations, tech, just as forward thinking as we can be, is the goal of what we do. And I started it originally back in 2013 when I was trying to escape the 9 to 5. I was working in private equity, just wanted to get out. Did that as a side hustle for a couple of years, eventually quit, booked a one-way flight down to South America and started traveling and started building MaidThis and eventually started franchising it in 2020.
So, did you like start renting Airbnbs at one point and see this as an opportunity, or what made you think specifically Airbnb, other than the fact that this was in the throes of like COVID and the Airbnb and Verbo business really took off once people could start, doing short-term
Yeah.
rentals?
Yeah, honestly, Frank, I wish I could say I was forward thinking and really smart, but I wasn't. Like most things, you kind of do it and you're like, oh, wow, like I don't know what happened over here.
Perfect
So I,
timing.
yeah, exactly. So no, when I originally started it 2013, 2014, I was trying a lot of side hustles when I was in my corporate job. I wanted to quit and travel and help support my parents. That's what I wanted to do. So I was trying e-commerce, drop shipping. Like if you type in escape the 9 to 5, all these people pop back then saying, oh, start a blog and do X, Y, and Z. So I was trying most of it and it flopped. And finally, I was on Reddit, which is a great place to procrastinate when you're at work, reddit.com. And there was a post of a guy who started a cleaning company. And I thought, hey, why not? I'm doing a bunch of other stuff, which is flopping. Let me get this started. And it started working. And this was around when Airbnbs just started coming up, 2014-ish.
Sure.
And so started to get calls from people who were just house hacking, like, hey, lease a place, I'm subleasing an Airbnb. Can you guys do the cleanings? And I realized, like, oh my God, this is significantly higher volume. A regular cleaning, what are you cleaning? 1 to 2 times a month. Airbnb's 6 to 8 times a month per property.
Right.
And I realized no one was doing it. So we started focusing more on that niche and started growing. And it just kind of happened. I always say you can't steer a parked car. It's hard to strategize when you're not actually in the field. But once you're in the field, you realize all these opportunities are popping up. And that's kind of what happened with the Airbnb market.
My wife and I have been in the short-term rental business, Neil, since 2020, and our experience has been that getting good cleaners is and having the frontline folks is the most important, right, for the experience and
Oh,
having
yeah.
a pristine home. But finding people is always the hardest thing. So, how do you guys overcome the fact that it's so difficult getting great people to clean?
Honestly, Frank, there's no way you could overcome it. I think it's like anyone in the home service industry, it doesn't matter for plumbing, HVAC, anything. The hardest part is always going to be labor. It's just
Mhm.
facts.
Sure.
So the only way to combat that, in my opinion, is volume. And we have an acronym we use in MaidThis called ABC, always be recruiting, always be in recruiting, finding cleaners, asking people. Some of the best cleaners, I've just been on a walk in LA and saw people cleaning a house. And I said, hey, do you guys want more work? And they said, yes. And they say, great, come on board and we'll recruit you. Right. So
Wow.
it's a constant flywheel. And I think when people start approaching finding cleaners as important as finding customers, the same marketing funnel, the same amount of investment, the same amount of energy, then things start moving. Many times I think people in business think about the labor as like, oh, I just have to do it. But the fact is that's probably the most important asset we have is the cleaners. So we invest a lot of money into finding cleaners, recruiting cleaners, onboarding cleaners.
Mhm.
And that really sets experience when it comes to Airbnb hosts or even residential homes of how they experience our service.
So besides being in really the Airbnb cleaning business, what would you say stands out, Neil, as being what makes your business unique in the industry that is, especially even in franchising, which is, flooded with cleaning services?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Like people always say, hey, you're in the cleaning business. And I guess technically I am. And Frank, maybe you feel this way, but oftentimes in business, the number one business I'm in is the staffing business. Number two is I'm a marketing business. And third is maybe I'm a cleaning business, right? It's almost like just happens to be what we do, but you're really in the staffing business, marketing business. And that's generally how it is for most businesses you'd start. And I think a lot of cleaning companies will focus on, hey, we're a cleaning company, we do this really well, and this is what we focus on. I'll be honest, I don't think we're the best cleaners ever.
Hmm.
Like that's something that's obviously required by the customer, and you have to execute at a certain level. But after that, my goal isn't to be the top 0.1% of cleaners, is to be a really, really good staffing agency and a marketing agency and make things stupidly convenient for the customer. So we just do things which are, in my opinion, a little bit more new age. We don't do in-person quotes. There's an online booking form. There's a lot of automations. There's AI tools where you could just chat and book with the chatbot immediately. We make things really, really convenient for the customers. So for example, on the vacation rental side, Frank, if you have an Airbnb, we could hook into your Airbnb calendar with our software.
Right.
Anytime you have a guest checkout, it'll schedule a cleaning with us, automatically assign a primary cleaner, a backup cleaner. When the cleaner goes, they'll fill out the report. They can report if there's low supplies, take photos of any damages. That gets automatically sent over to you. Now, you as an Airbnb host, when you hear that, you might be used to dealing with mom and pop cleaners. You have to text and say, hey, you showing up tomorrow? Like, X, Y, and Z. Maybe they're great cleaners, but it's really inconvenient to have to do that constantly. So with our system, everything's fully automated. You get charged automatically. You get reports. If there's damages, we'll send you a PDF so you could file a claim with Airbnb. It's just extremely convenient. So my focus isn't being the best cleaners. It's just being the most convenient service on the planet.
Yeah. So you really understand what business you're really in, being in the staffing business and then marketing. So many business owners, that's where we go wrong, is thinking we're in really the business of the actual product or service we're providing.
Frank, I'm curious on your end for I-9, which is a little bit different because you're not going out to people's houses. Would you say it's the same staffing and marketing, or how would you classify your business?
Yeah, because one of the challenges that franchisees loved running the business. So we had to, early on, kind of get people away from the mindset that you couldn't be the person running around on the field with, the whistle around your neck. Or if you wanted to do that, you still need to hire somebody to run the business. But the challenge for us was scale, because people would run one location of, like, say, soccer, flag football, and baseball games and say, well, how can I expand? I can't be at two places at once. So getting that mind shift change from the very, very beginning, that someone was in training, knowing that you're going to be opening 3 locations in a very short period of time, forced them to think that they had to grow beyond them. Because like you said, we were in the business really too of staffing. It was all about scale. If you didn't scale our sports business, you weren't going to be quote unquote successful. You were never going to hit your numbers because you could only get so many kids at one location, right?
That's why you guys wanted them to open 3 at once, because they physically couldn't just do one.
Yeah, exactly. We wanted to force them to scale, to think bigger. And once we got people to think like a CEO, it changed everything for our business. Of course, it didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen from the very beginning. This was merely a byproduct of, people are getting stuck in the tyranny of how, and they're trying to be this master of one location, but they were never going to hit their goals if they only had one location.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And on our end, it's one of those situations, again, where I didn't foresee it, but just the way we set up our franchise system is to be fully remote from day one. I'm a terrible cleaner. I can't be out in the field. And most of our franchises are buying in because they don't want to be out in the field either. And I think, thinking back to when I started, I was working a job originally as a side hustle. I couldn't be out in the field. Eventually, I quit my job and started traveling. I couldn't actually physically be there. So there was a lot of artificial constraints created automatically. And that's why we systemize so fast. So many times our franchisees are buying in because they don't want to be in the field. We don't have any franchises in the field. From day one, all they're focused on is marketing and recruiting as the main remote staffing and marketing agency. That's all they're focused on from day one. So it's interesting, just creating those kind of artificial constraints really help your business grow a lot faster.
Sure. And that reminds me of a friend of mine who actually bought a franchise specifically in a sector that he was uncomfortable doing because he didn't want to accidentally start doing the work. So he bought a franchise in a concept that he was unable to do the work in home services specifically.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it forced him to grow out this business, and he was super successful, but it forced him to think big and to not get caught up in, well, I can kind of help out here and do the work. Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.